I'm thinking holes cut out in the side and big honking cocks just hanging out and, random people. That's my interpretation. Maybe I'm a weirdo.
They certainly wouldn't have been using any condoms, that's for sure.
The Midwest, home sweet home in good old Indiana. Place of small towns, cozy families gathered together, and fields of corn and rustic woods. But, like any town, there is a dark underbelly that often goes unnoted. We are part of that darkness. We lurk in the shadows to bring you the best in horror, metal, and stories of the grotesque. This is Blood in the Cornfields.
All right, welcome in, my fellow cellar dwellers. How's everybody doing?
Hope you guys are doing great. Are you guys having fun? Is there shit going on in your life? How were the holidays? Ours was pretty good.
Yes, pretty good. I would say definitely. What about you? What do you got going on?
You always start with me first.
Because I just defer to you. I don't know. It's kind of my natural tendencies.
I mean, that's fine.
All right, next episode, I will just take the lead. I will just bulldog you and just tell what's new for me.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
That works.
But, holidays went pretty good. I know last time we talked about, new things coming in 2024.
Recapping the year, movies in review, that sort of stuff.
And
which too many people liked When Evil Lurks. I know we were just talking about that.
Oh my God.
That has been so many people's favorite. It's not mine.
Yeah.
And but until the guy kicks the shit out of the kid.
Oh, yeah.
Then that's great. It's my absolute favorite part.
Yeah. But as far as I do want to say Lisa Frankenstein, the trailer dropped.
Yes.
And it looks fucking great.
It does. Absolutely.
It's 80s kind of theme, which I know we're, fucking Stranger Things and all this other bullshit that came out. I think we're kind of oversaturated in 80s and stuff. But
she's very much 80s goth.
Yeah, Diablo Cody?
I don't know. Is that the actress?
No.
Wait, what?
I thought you were talking about the Diablo Cody's the director.
Oh, no.
Or the writer. The writer,
lead,
my bad.
the blonde-haired girl.
Oh, yeah, the lead.
She very
Catherine
much
Newton.
has different array of gothic dresses and long and black. And
She looks fun. I love the way she looks. Very, very awesome. And then what blew my mind is Cole Sprouse is in this. He's the creature. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Zach and Cody?
Yes, I remember the show back in the day.
Or
yes.
I guess, not saying you're old, but
no, I definitely am. It's okay.
Big Daddy. He was a little kid.
Yes.
In that. And it was okay, well, both the kids were Cole and what was the other kid's name? Whatever.
Oh, God. You're asking me to remember shit?
Yeah.
That's never good.
But, yeah, no, that looks like a good time. I'm excited for it. Yeah. I want this. I want this so bad.
I saw it too, because the last episode you mentioned something. And so I had said, so I thought it was a play on Lisa Frank, the Trapper Keeper shit. Yeah. That's what I thought. I was like, wait, what? How, is it going to have bright, colorful unicorns and
it's
all
kind
this sort
of bright
shit?
Colored with the way her makeup is and shit.
But I think it's just like a Kid Frankenstein thing or whatever. So I don't know, but yeah, that's what I thought it was a play on that, and I'm glad it's not, because how the fuck would you wean that into a movie?
It'd be interesting.
Not wean. Weave that into a movie.
You can wean it.
Well, Ween's a pretty rad band, but other than that.
and as far as the other trailer that was kind of interesting that I just happened to catch before a YouTube video, it was The First Omen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The way it was kind of shot was kind of music video based, and it looked.
I haven't seen the trailer.
It was kind of neat. You have to check it out. I don't know if the movie's actually going to be good.
Who knows?
But the way it looked was just, it was artfully done. Sweet. It had this weird, because everything's inverse when it comes to demons and stuff like that. Yeah. So the movie or the scenes would play backwards.
Yes.
And it kind of gave this kind of creepy feeling, got the Catholic Church vibes and all this other stuff. And it looked neat. Yeah. But we'll see how it actually goes. Yeah.
And it's been, so I'm trying to think in my head. I know they did a remake not too long ago. I want to say
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, 20 teens. And it wasn't that bad. I thought it was actually pretty decent.
Wasn't it back in 2006 that they did the remake because they purposely wanted it to be released on 666?
Could have been, because I just remember the scene where they're all having a party and the little boy's out on the balcony and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just what sticks in my head.
It's all for you, yes. Damien! But I got one other thing, go ahead. For it. No.
Let it rip.
Okay.
Let it rip. Keep it going.
Night Swim, released recently, is terrible. Don't watch it. Ever. Please do yourselves a favor. It's not good. It's literally no different than fucking Lights Out that we had a while back. Night Swim, as a matter of fact, was a short movie, like YouTube movie.
Oh, that's right. And literally full length
3 minutes, and now they're dragging it out a whole... It's bizarre. It's literally bad things happen. This pool's fucking cursed and shit, and there's like a creature living in there.
Did they have like a blood ritual in the pool or something?
You'll have to see. But it's bizarre, and like it revolves around this like baseball player who's like he gets into an accident, but like the pool rejuvenates him and gives him strength and shit. And like he's like, we need to keep this pool even though it's like potentially killing my kids. And it's like it's like a Christine kind of thing with it too, where it kind of possesses a person. So yeah, it's weird.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I am excited for... First thing I'm going to start off with is information just dropped about 28 years later. So the 28 days later, 28 weeks later, now this is 28 years later. So they're starting actually production. And the thing that's got me hyped is Danny Boyle is going to be directing again. Some of you don't know, he did Slumdog Millionaire, he did Trainspotting. 28 Days Later was like his first horror that I don't know ever, but I know that like he had not done any horror in quite a while. Like he did The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like really, really, really good director. So I'm excited about that because he did 28 Days Later, was an executive producer on 28 Weeks Later, and then now supposedly is directing again. And it is supposed to be 28 years later. So, and I've heard that they're going to spin it into something new after this, which could be kind of interesting. So that's my first thing.
So it is a movie. It's not a series.
It is a movie so far. Okay. Now, whether that changes during like early production, who knows?
Yeah.
Nerd part of me is excited about that Motel Hell toy I showed you.
Oh yeah, that thing looks bad.
The Farmer Fred. Yes, I will be ordering it tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait to see it when it comes.
Goblin House, little shout out to him. He's got some good shit. So he just dropped a bunch of the new Toonie Tears. The new series has like Megan. It has the Misfits, Crimson Ghost dude. It has They Live with the Obey guy. And Vincent Price. This series is pretty badass. So my walls are getting bare now. I've got the Toonie Tears up, so I need to expand on that.
Oh, that's too cool.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Next thing is when I was getting tattooed, me and Neil talked about doing cryptid shit. So we're going to be starting on some of that. We've had to kind of get organized with that. So cryptids will be later this year. We'll be doing, I think, a couple. And then I am also researching another true crime that is a doozy. I've been picking doozies. So this one's going to be really, really, really interesting. So I'll be looking forward to that pretty soon. Looking forward to some of these cryptids that are going to be doing, but I am also been looking forward to this episode that we are doing today.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably one of the ones that I've anticipated the most, so I'm pretty excited about that. And we have some guests here.
We do. Without further ado, let's start with you.
All right. Well, so my name is Andrew Borntrager. I've lived in Goshen pretty much all my life. So I work with a series of nonprofits, clubhouses. Their communities of support for adults with a history of mental illness. I also work as a programmer for Riverbend Film Festival, our local film festival.
Awesome.
And have kind of had a lifelong journey with the Glory Bar and Hobart Freeman cult. When I was in college, I actually contacted someone to try and make a documentary about it. And that failed, and then other attempts happened, and so... it's been over a decade of trying and just not being able to get a lot of people involved. But in that time, I have gathered tons of information about it. It's been sort of an obsession of mine.
That's awesome.
Has there been any documentary going? Has there? Okay, I just didn't know if there was. Okay, cool.
Very nice. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for
having me.
And we have a lovely guest.
Adrian Sharp. Yes, that's me. Local eccentric Adrian Sharp.
Good.
Yeah, I'm Adrian Sharp. I'm part of the band Brides of Neptune, which is a Goshen-based dark folk sort of group.
Woo!
Do a lot of satanic themes and cultic ones. We have a few songs that have to do with Hobart Freeman and his Faith Assembly. And so I have some knowledge of it that I've gained over the years of talking with different people and trying to do some research for different songs and other projects and that sort of thing. So.
Well, and you're kind of the inspiration of this particular podcast, this episode.
Ooh, yeah. It should have been Andrew because he's so much more charming than I am.
Well, you had that awesome song that we happened to hear you perform. Yeah. And it was very cool to actually hear a song about Hobart Freeman, considering, the whole notorious Glory Barn and that sort of thing. Because we all kind of had, if you've listened to our other podcasts, we kind of talked about it a little bit, that we have had, heard about it in our past and passing, because it's for lack of a better term, a local legend. Yeah. People know about this. People have been a part of it. People's lives have been deeply affected by it and torn apart. So let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Tell us
before we cut too much.
Yeah. I have to interject. No, go for it. You can
interject. So I'm just gonna see. Am I the only one that hears when they hear the term Glory Barn has certain images come to mind?
Well, you're talking about it was a holistic approach to things, wasn't it?
Because I'm thinking holes cut out in the side and big honking cocks just hanging out and random people. That's my interpretation. Maybe I'm a weirdo.
They certainly wouldn't have been using any condoms. That's for sure.
Okay, all right, cool. Let's just get that out of the way.
Free in that regard.
That's right.
But that literally is the image in my head every time I hear the term Glory Barn. So all right, I'm cool that I'm probably the only one.
I wish it was just a giant gay club in the middle of the field. Somewhere.
That would be really cool.
Would have been a lot better.
I don't think Hobart Freeman would have enjoyed that.
No? Okay. All right.
Secretly,
It's just in my head. Okay, that's fine. I just had to get it out there to make sure. And any of you listening, you will now probably have that image. You're welcome. But yeah, that's what comes to mind. So, all right, cool. Without any further ado, take it away.
So I thought maybe we would start from the end and then work our way back to the beginning. So this is the obituary of Hobart Freeman from the United Press International, Sunday, December 9th, 1984. Warsaw, Indiana. Hobart Freeman, leader of the controversial Faith Assembly sect that teaches members to shun medical care, died Saturday night at home. He was 64. Freeman, who founded the religious sect which practices faith healing and shuns doctors and hospitals, apparently died in his sleep at his home near Shoe Lake in northern Kosciuszko County. Relatives told county authorities, including coroner Gary Eastland, Freeman had been ill about a month. Eastland said an autopsy showed Freeman, who had a history of heart disease, apparently died of severe cardiovascular disease and mild bronchial pneumonia. The coroner said there was no way to immediately determine whether medical neglect hastened death, but added authorities might know after results of tissue studies in a week or so. County police and Eastland were called to the Freeman residence, where a daughter who was at her father's bedside said he died about 8:30 p.m. Saturday. The family said no doctors attended Freeman during his month's illness. Freeman was indicted October 17th on charges in connection with the death of a 15-year-old girl whose parents were members of the Faith Assembly and did not seek medical treatment for their daughter. The Kosciuszko County Grand Jury charged Freeman with aiding or inducing reckless homicide, criminal recklessness, and neglect of a dependent. He pleaded innocent to the charges. 2 Faith Assembly couples have been convicted of child neglect and reckless homicide in the deaths of children who died without the aid of medical treatment. Authorities have said that as many as 90 deaths have occurred because members of the Faith Assembly based in northern Indiana followed Freeman's teachings and practiced faith healing without seeking medical care. Many of the deaths were among women in childbirth and young children. Freeman, born at Ewing in northeast Kentucky, studied at DuPont Manual Training High School near Louisville. He said he made a conversion to Christ in 1952 and began a dedicated and fast-paced study of theology. He completed graduate studies in 1961 and became an instructor at Grace Theological Seminary at Winona Lake near Warsaw. In 1971, he founded the Faith Assembly with Mel Grider at Wilmot. The sect claims more than 2,000 members in the Midwest.
Wow.
Right. Interesting.
So I have
90 people.
I have a couple interjections because I'm just curious. As a funeral director, Who took care of him? Like, where was his obituary posted at? Do you know?
It appeared all throughout the country. This was the United Press International one. The Associated Press did one that appeared in the New York Times. There was a whole write-up in like some local things as well. Fort Wayne Sentinel had a big thing about it.
And you have to remember that this was right after the indictment, and the indictment was a huge thing.
Yeah.
There was also, I believe it was Nightline, who did some kind of coverage on this.
Good luck finding it, though. It's,
right, exactly.
It's hard to find.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So he died in the 84?
Yeah.
Is that what I heard? Okay.
And, interesting enough, you mentioned Gary Eastland was the coroner at the time. Gary Eastland owned Eastland Funeral Homes in Syracuse, which was actually a competitor of my cousin's funeral home for quite a long time. So that's kind of neat, though. I didn't realize he was a coroner during that time.
Did it say he had a house on Winona Lake?
Oh, Shoe Lake.
Shoe Lake. Okay, I just heard Winona Lake.
He had gone, or had been attended and been a professor at Grace College.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My father had a house on Winona Lake, or an art studio or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Cults as well,
Yeah.
So going back to Hobart Freeman's history, so early on in his life, Hobart had polio.
Oh.
And so he walked with a limp throughout the rest of his life. Very stiffly. It's also kind of ironic that the man had so many health problems over the course of the years, and still was a part of this faith healing movement.
Yeah.
And his fear, I would say, and hatred of doctors may have sprung from the treatments that he had received in his youth.
Oh, yeah.
He had been a very sickly child, and so I think that may have certainly
Definitely
colored his view on the medical profession.
So I think in his early 30s, I believe, that's when he survived a heart attack, and he claimed his healing, saying he healed it with his own faith, and he disposed of all of his medications, and almost immediately suffered a series of angina attacks, which eventually subsided on their own. He was a very sickly man, had a lot of health problems.
I was going to say 64 isn't exactly that old.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes. That is a very young age to pass.
Absolutely. But he was strongly influenced by the Word of Faith movement. So this was a charismatic movement that started in the 60s. There are a lot of fairly well-known faith healers that were a part of this. He was a little bit of an outlier, though, because he took a lot of that to a pretty extreme degree. And in his time in Grace Seminary, this actually led to him being expelled from the seminary.
I could imagine.
He made it through the seminary. It made him once he was a professor.
Right, once he was a professor, yes.
And he went far enough off the rails off of Grace, which I don't know how familiar you are. They are to this day a bit eccentric in their views.
Yes, they are.
He was, even by their standards, way off the rails.
Awesome.
So he started. He was always a scholar. One of the big things that I see in a lot of testimonies is talk about how he was very persuasive and very logical, and formed this culture of logic almost. He was extremely good at picking apart scripture and using that to whatever end. Right. This guy was a straight up scholar.
Right.
And he had multiple degrees. He was a very intelligent human being. His demeanor is also described as very, not shy, but very reserved.
Reserved.
Do we want to hear a little bit of his preaching then?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure could, Absolutely.
There's not only a promise of healing, but of the individual, but of healing of the land and the whole experience of the entire person. All right, I want to deal tonight with the subject of healing. I've found that many Christians can appropriate their healing, but occasionally those who, after they receive healing, do not always know how to keep it. And she said she doesn't have the baptism of the Holy Spirit, had never heard that God is in the business of healing today, knew nothing about this, and said she heard that tape where you said that you can pray for yourself, and she was desperate enough that she was willing to try because the doctors couldn't help her. And he said she laid hands as she listened to that tape on herself and said, "I'm healed in Jesus' name," and instantly the power of God transformed her into a healthy person. He said she got out of bed, now she's attending the meetings every day. You can pray for yourself.
So the what struck me about Hobart's preaching style is you're expecting someone, especially in sort of a charismatic movement, to be this, jumping up and down, stopping.
Yeah, most cult leaders have to be charismatic to draw people in initially.
Mm-hmm. He is not that way at all. He is very even keel, and to me that's almost more like chilling because it's not what you're expecting.
Yeah.
To happen.
Interesting.
These recordings, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, were often used to punish kids. So they make them sit down and listen to Dr. Freeman's tapes.
Yep.
He's got a very dry voice, and it's like, God, damn.
So if you ask someone who grew up in that, when they hear that, it will immediately bring them back to being like in trouble with their parents.
It gives me a little bit of PTSD because my parents were kind of the same way, but with Lester Summerall teachings.
Oh my goodness! Wow, reaching into the time fog on that one.
Yeah,
this guy was way worse than old Lester. On that. I mean, he had his issues, but not like this guy. This guy was. Old Hobart was something else entirely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so basically, Hobart Freeman tried many different venues for housing his church, right? Mm-hmm. So he had one that was started in his home, and then a congregation known as Faith Assembly, which was that was started at his home in Winona Lake.
Okay.
Okay.
And
interesting.
During this time, it's said that he worked like 15 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just nonstop made all of these tapes, did all these writings, did all these sermons.
Oh, wow.
And just, even visited Israel for a while to do some studying there. Mm-hmm. So within a few years, though, obviously he outgrew that and founded one in Claypool, Indiana, which was a little pink house next to a water tower. And it was eventually too small again. So they moved to a 3-car garage.
Wait, how many kids did he have? Do you have a lot of kids?
This is congregation.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Dude,
You're just thinking
I'm
he's
sorry.
mating all over the
I'm like,
place.
shit, dude.
Hobart's got it going.
He had a daughter.
He has that sultry voice.
Yeah.
So this may be something that we'll have to do in a round 2 if we get a bunch of comments.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I know that he definitely had a daughter. Anyway.
So in a lot of the testimonials that I've heard about the early days of the formation of the Glory Barn, I hear about this guy Mac, Melvin Greiter, and he owned an old sheep barn that was in North Webster, and he had been holding like a coffee house ministry, and this guy was a big burly biker type guy.
Okay.
Like hard drinking kind of dude who had eventually quit drinking and become a Christian and
born again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, born again. So, this sheep barn became known as the Glory Barn. Freeman dubbed it this, and it attracted a lot of different kinds of people. Initially, a lot of misfits, a lot of people who were on the fringes of charismatic theology and things like that, and also a lot of young adults. So in general, wherever Hobart Freeman established congregation, the locals were usually not very pleased. That was kind of a theme there. So, with the Glory Barn being established, there was eventually a point where it was burnt down. And there were suspicions of foul play.
I was going to say, how was it burnt down?
Yeah.
So
this was the original building that gave the group the name Glory.
The Glory Barn.
And at the time, the area was fairly religious, but it was mostly going to be United Methodist Brethren, that sort of thing. Yeah. Very sort of mainline standard.
A lot of stuff that's still around here today.
Yeah. But and I don't want to make it seem like it was sort of a very irreligious area. It wasn't. Yeah. But they weren't this sort of thing. And when they encountered it, they were very upset. And like when family members would join it, a lot of times they would cut off ties with others who wouldn't do it. So if there was a parent who joined or a child who joined, They might not be there for Christmas. They might not be there for this, and that was really a lot of the hostility was coming from
that's
that.
very cultish.
No kidding.
Definitely.
So during the glory days of the Glory Barn,
The glorious days of the glorious barn.
2 levels, and Hobart Freeman attracted so many people that it was absolutely overflowing. This barn would literally rock.
Oh my God!
Services. And they thought it was cool.
They thought it was amazing.
But it was structurally unsound.
Oh God!
Thankfully, tragedy did not strike in that moment.
Okay.
Although I wonder if they call the EMTs. Probably.
No.
But a lot of the people there would travel long distances, like over an hour, maybe 2 hours, to get there every Sunday morning. There would be long lines to get into the building.
Oh my God!
It was absolutely huge. And all of the young assistant pastors, as I've heard them referred to most prominently, teachers is what he called his little acolytes or whatever. They would all sit in front and all had their little reserved seats. He very quickly built up this congregation. So this led to about 15,000 people in total who were part of daughter congregations. The teachers that Hobart Freeman had, a lot of them would go to other places to establish
to
other
like
churches.
spread their word and stuff.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And so there were daughter congregations in Illinois, in Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Missouri, Tennessee, Florida, England, Australia, Canada, Switzerland, and Germany.
Holy shit!
So that's
nuts.
Spread like wildfire for a while there. But each one of those ones. Those congregations, the further you get away from the epicenter of Indiana, the more different they are. The more they were just...
They were under the brand, but they were,
Right,
You weren't going to get some of the more eccentric practices that we'll get into later.
Right, yeah. And a lot of those eccentric practices, involved the teachers, so to say. A lot of them kind of had their own characteristics and own little quirks that made things weird. So there's some things you'll hear about. There's some things you'll hear about Glory Barn that don't actually apply to the entire congregation. A lot of very disparate practices.
If I may interrupt real quick, when you were telling me a little bit about how it would divide families, I'm sure Hobart would use this fucking verse that I heard a lot. It was from Matthew 10:34 through 36. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law, blah, 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 against their household. Yeah. I'm sure he used that, and it's like, that's okay. That's the Lord working.
Well, and he that
splitting families apart.
He that will not forsake father and mother is not worthy of me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he would do this all the time. But more than most people would do this. You'll see it.
Damn.
So a lot of what they emphasized in their teachings involved works of the Holy Spirit, claiming prophecies. Miraculous healings.
The claiming was the important thing,
Yes, the claiming
of that. Was.
You want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the idea of the power of God or the spiritual world or whatever was that it was all around us, but that we had to claim it, and by claiming it meant to find a verse in Scripture that would activate this. So if it was a kid having an asthma attack, if it was losing a job, if it was your car breaks down or something like that, it was finding the correct spell to say. So it
is basically witchcraft.
It was, yes. Yeah. Well, but I mean, of course he would say it was the opposite of witchcraft.
Of course he would.
But it was finding this esoteric sort of secret spell to say in the moment that would, if you had enough faith, would work.
So it like fixed the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's kind of like
but when it failed, it was because
you didn't have enough faith.
Didn't have enough faith.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that was one of the big things that really set Hobart Freeman apart from a lot of the other faith healing organizations is that failure. There are a lot of Christian denominations that will practice the idea of praying over someone, right? Hoping for
covering it in the blood of Jesus, and
but the opposite implication isn't as often this stressed, In this case...
And oftentimes in those organizations, they'll do the claim the blood and then they'll go to the doctor.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I'm having, a study done for, I'm worried I might have cancer or something like that. So they'll do prayer over them and then they'll go do that.
Yeah.
This would have said that if you went to the doctor, it showed you did not have faith in Christ.
Oh, shit.
And that you were appealing to sorcerers and magicians and witches. Yes.
Who's really the one practicing witchcraft, though?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, usually it's the one accusing everyone of witchcraft. At least in the movies, that's what that is.
So, I have a quote here about Freeman's teachings. I'll just go ahead and read this quote. So, Freeman's teaching also generated a social dimension, a sense of community care, cohesion, exclusiveness, superiority, and persecution grew with the breadth, authority, and enthusiasm of his teachings. Those with divergent doctrines, beliefs, or practices either conformed or were excluded. Outside interactions grew less and were sometimes severed over these issues. Evangelical outreach shriveled. So while legalism was denounced from the pulpit, it was practiced amongst the congregation to the extent that it has been described as cultist tendencies. Mm-hmm. These teachings were comprehensive and logical, including the roles of women, music, jobs, medical science, government, the military, education, birth control, sports, and holidays. Christmas being condemned as a pagan festival was one of these things.
Sweet.
Of course. Because, fringe Christian groups love to hate on Christmas.
I heard even Thanksgiving was not allowed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was sort of like the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, exactly.
So, yeah.
Although I think they had birthdays. Did they have birthdays?
I'm not actually sure about that.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they do. So I actually know somebody that was Jehovah's Witness.
No, Jehovah's Witnesses won't.
No.
But I think this group also did not do birthdays.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jehovah's Witness doesn't.
They said it was pagan. Pagans also drank water and breathed air. Yeah. So breathing and drinking water is also pagan.
Right.
Yeah, so, in addition to that, the role of a woman in the church was to be a wife and mother, and was seen to be most noble and one of the most worthy callings. However, everything else that we've heard about the Glory Barn kind of indicates the opposite. So there were a lot of teachings like that that were sort of not practiced.
Don't practice what they preach.
They didn't practice what they preach. That's how it happens. Yeah, but there was also a lot of joking around, or not so joking around, but just observation from people in local communities that they all kind of look the same.
How so?
Yeah, so
there's the stereotype of it. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. What's that?
So they had an outfit.
Yeah,
they had a code, like a dress code.
Basically, yeah. So. For example, one quote here, a typical Faith Assembly family on their way to church consisted of a man who was probably a construction worker, carrying a notebook and a Bible under one arm and a diaper bag over his shoulder. He would be walking with his wife, who would be wearing a denim skirt and carrying a baby with several other kids in tow. They would also drive a van.
And the wife was probably pregnant too. Yeah.
Barefoot and pregnant.
Yeah. She probably wore the shoes, but yeah, they always drove a van. Yeah, that was the standard.
A van. Okay.
Yeah. You gotta carry all them kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was one of those things that wasn't really doctrine related.
It just sounds like a typical Catholic family. I'm sorry, I'm Catholic. I get it. I know the stereotype. I've been to a number of masses.
As we mentioned before, the locals, wherever Hobart Freeman went, were usually not very, not cool with the dude, right?
Yeah.
Because people were dying. So in 1974, there was this woman, Barbara Klaus. She was a nurse in Kosciuszko County. She wrote about her concerns about these congregations not receiving medical care. Mm-hmm. And she says, quote, diabetics were not taking their insulin.
Oh, jeez.
And pregnant women were receiving no prenatal or postnatal care.
Oh, my God. That's
they
so
are
scary.
laying dead babies and live babies next to each other on the altars and praying over them to get the live babies to bring life back to the dead ones.
Gosh, I hate that so much. Crazy. That hurts me.
And there was one woman in our county praying over a baby for 4 days before the funeral home got a hold of it.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. Baby, so I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
That just trauma all coming back as a funeral director. Jeez. And of course, I'm always the one that takes care of the children. And I adore being able to do that for families. And it's very hard now being a mother. But the thing is with infants, if you don't have them embalmed ASAP, they go quick. They are literally almost all water. So I can't imagine.
They have more fluids than.
I can't imagine. I don't even know how old this baby was when they died.
There were a few stories. There was some of other children as well. The frightening thing for me was, how did he think this would work? Like, he lays. So picture we are in this room and there's an altar. And there is a dead child laying next to a live child. Black
metal song.
Right? Oh my God.
Journey with me now. So a dead child laying next to a live child, and he's saying these things. In my fantasy, he's saying it in Hebrew because he was a professor of Hebrew. Mm-hmm. And you hear, and you look, and the dead child is alive, and the live child is dead, and he looks at the parents and says, "A life for a life, a soul for a soul."
Oh my God, dude. I see it.
Like, how is this going to work? You know, and who's putting the live baby next to this is madness.
My big question is, there have to have been tons of examples of this stuff not working.
Yes. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. And yet they still kept doing this, and it was still, you're a failure if you,
Well, Andrew, you were talking about how he had no evidence of miracles, and I've heard of various cult leaders, including some weird things with Manson, some weird things with Jim Jones, where you can't quite explain it. Even like Joseph Smith, where there were things where it's like, how did you know this, or how did you do this? Mm-hmm. And you said that there was nothing like that with Freeman at all.
Was there ever a time in Freeman's life where, okay, he had polio for a long time? Was he just healed of it?
No. Well, he had polio as a kid, and when you had polio, it just.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if later on, as he experienced something in his teenage youth or something like that.
He experienced something at the end of his life that was associated with that.
Oh, okay.
Good to that. Yeah.
But did he ever? And so, was there any? Did he ever claim he was a prophet, or was there any of that element?
They called him that. He was called a prophet.
Okay.
I'm sure he wasn't objecting too loudly.
Yeah, and I don't think he was really deified. Anyway, I don't think he
was seen as speaking for their God, though.
Right, yes. Mm-hmm. Sort of the primary intercessor.
Sort of a Muhammad kind of figure as opposed to a Christ kind of figure.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we're using it.
That makes sense.
We're using crass analogies in this. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, going back to this woman, Barbara Klaus, she also, her concerns were supported by local hospital statistics from 1975 to 76, which suggests that women from the congregation were over 60 times more likely for their babies to die in childbirth than the average woman who gives birth under medical supervision. And so that was a big thing for the Department of Health and Human Services.
I can imagine.
Obviously. And so this led to a whole thing of the CDC investigating, and there's a lot of technical documentations around all of that are publicly available.
Damn, I'm all for natural birth because that's how I had Casper, but it's that's going way too fucking far.
Right. Well, and if something went wrong, you would have gone to a hospital.
Exactly.
Even the use of midwives to an extent was frowned upon. So
that's nuts.
If a child had been born 100 years earlier in, say, Warsaw, they would have had a better chance at living. That the infant mortality rate among the local populace 100 years earlier was lower than it was.
That's fucking
because
crazy.
they didn't take any of the precautions they would have even known of then.
Oh my God. And especially with these being young women that are just kind of, because you said a majority of them were young people that joined this congregation, and that's just so scary. Oh my God.
And so,
obviously they were of childbearing age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been doing in vitro fertilization or anything, so they would have been,
I just can't imagine as a new mom going through this shit. That's terrible.
Absolutely. So speaking of, my aunt is actually what really sparked my interest in the Glory Barn in general. So she was a part of the cult.
Oh wow!
In the I believe early 80s is when she joined, and that's around when her son was born. And she, as I found out this morning, was actually there upon Hobart Freeman's death.
And he died in 84, right?
84, yep. Mm-hmm, yep. And she's had a lot of interesting stories. She's also corroborated a lot of things. So, for example, the babies on the altar, she witnessed that.
Wow.
More than once. At least from what I understand.
Oh, my God.
She's been reticent to talk about a lot of this. for sure. She eventually fled after Hobart's death. But she also told lots of stories about things like one particular teacher talking very explicitly about how we have to dress our babies modestly. No floral print or, anything frilly, with no direct reason why. But, it was all about modesty.
I don't like
it's all
that.
about modesty.
For a baby.
Neither did my aunt. And this was... I think that was her first. I think she said that was her first big red flag.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Absolutely, but also as soon as the news broke about the investigation on Hobart Freeman and the Glory Barn cult, she was still going, and she actually used to recall an incident where there were news reporters in helicopters, above the sky, and her actually, everybody covering their heads, running, to their cars to try and get away, that sort of thing. So it became this big thing for a moment in the news nationally.
Damn.
And so she was witness to that. And so right when this stuff was getting publicized, in 1980, I think it was the first instance of this. There were a bunch of people who were, I think they were having a service, and somehow the Glory Barn itself caught on fire. And
they were rocking too much, man. Caught on fire.
Something like that. I don't think it was actually during a worship
dang it.
or anything like that.
Lighting them candles.
There were minimal injuries. There were 2 boys who suffered burns. Rescued.
Jesus.
This is the one where the building was a total loss, then, right?
Yes.
And they were, sorry.
No, you're cool.
Fire brigades from 3 different counties showed up.
But not the EMTs.
For 2 hours.
We're not treating any of you.
Get out of here.
But they fought the blaze for about 2 hours. And then the North Webster's fire officials described the fire as of suspicious origin. Nobody has been charged, but you put the dots together. It's pretty obvious something happened there.
And this was still Grider's property, right?
Yes.
And they were, I believe at this time, there had been quite a falling out between the 2 men. And there was...
Oh, really?
So, I don't know, but pick one. Like, there were a bunch of people that wanted
So Hobart got in it with another person? Or another teacher?
It had been Hobart Freeman's friend Mel Grider who had
who owned the
property.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, the big burly guy? Dude.
Yes.
Okay,
Mac.
all right, Mac.
Good old Melvin Grider.
So Hobart Freeman actually was formally charged with aiding and abetting some of these deaths, as it was mentioned in his obituary. However, he died right before he was tried.
He'd been arraigned, but he was
Okay.
And he pled not guilty. I don't know what his defense was going to be. I guess death was his defense.
Right.
Maybe that was the plan. I don't know.
So he developed a gangrenous leg. It was ulcerated.
Ew.
And also bronchial pneumonia and congestive heart failure.
Which he had the heart issues.
Hobart did?
Yeah,
that's what ultimately led to his death.
Oh my God!
By the gangrene, and
that's why they needed the
time.
That's why they needed the tissue samples that was mentioned in the obituary.
Oh my God, that makes sense.
If medical negligence had led directly to it, and
Interesting, because I know congestive heart failure can have fluid that drains throughout the body and the lower extremities. So I find it interesting that his leg was infected.
And the fact with the gangrene, like usually if you seek medical attention, you get that baby cut off.
Yeah.
If it's really bad.
Yeah, it's like, did he have someone saw it off? I mean, or did he just like rock
right?
Did he just rock with this rotten leg?
I bet he smelled terrific.
Oh, he had to. He had to.
Well,
that would have knocked people over.
Makes this even more, a little more smelly.
Smelly.
One of the big things was that he refused to even allow his bandages to be removed for the wound to be cleaned.
Oh my fucking God.
So yes, you can imagine what that smells like. And I'm
Disgusting.
sure it wasn't great.
delicious.
Yeah.
Ulcers and big old bumps and shit that are filled with fluids and nastiness.
Lots of pus. I'm sure.
I really feel it for the funeral director on that one. Right?
Dude, that is all I'm thinking about. God bless the funeral director that took care of this man, because that sounds awful.
I bet they're like, you know who this is? They're like, no fucking way. No.
Yeah, right.
They're like, oh shit, it is.
Oh, fuck.
Oh god. You're like, you want to see something fucked up? Like, yeah.
Of course you do.
They're showing everybody in like in the office, come here.
I think I need a second opinion on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
So while he had this gangrenous leg and was struggling, he actually still preached. He preached sitting down. I believe he preached all the way up until days before his death. And so he didn't let it stop him.
You know what?
He was really determined.
I'll give him the credit for that. Like, good job, dude. Good on you. You're dedicated to your craft.
He believed his bullshit. He really did.
Yeah.
He wasn't a charlatan.
Yeah.
Hey, so I will give that to you, at least,
Conviction,
You're a terrible person, but good on you.
Way to see it through.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So, obviously, the prayers didn't work and he died, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my aunt was a part of the group of people of the congregation who were praying over him. So she actually recalled a time when one of the teachers finally came out and said, Hobart Freeman has passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He's finally gone. And
how long did it take before they told the police?
That's what I'm wondering too, man.
It was 13 hours. They prayed over him for 13 hours.
So that's why they did the autopsy. They insist on doing an autopsy.
Absolutely, that makes
because in the
sense.
religion that would have been seen as an evil thing, but they're like, nope, we're doing this because they thought
legally, yeah.
You didn't tell us for this amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, what are you hiding? What else are you hiding?
Yeah.
So they wanted to make sure that he wasn't murdered.
Yeah.
I don't know how autopsies were done in the 80s, but I'm sure there was a different method compared to now. But, typically, you go through blood draw and stuff like that and you get that tested, and that alone takes quite a bit of time. But I'm sure just looking at him and the neglect that he had would have obviously told them, oh no, this is natural causes. Let the doctor sign off on this shit.
They would have looked at the leg and been like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
And then looked at his heart.
Oh no,
like,
well,
oh, yeah.
I guess he never saw a doctor, so a doctor would never sign off. It'd be the coroner. So
he would have had an iron triangle of doom with the heart, the lungs, and the leg.
No kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
So when one of the teachers came out and finally announced his death, he punctuated that statement with, "And it's all your fault."
Yeah.
Because
you stupid bastards.
Did not pray hard enough.
Didn't pray hard.
Yeah, you didn't pray hard enough.
My aunt was actually a part of
Said every pastor ever that has blamed other people. You didn't pray hard enough to get your relative to walk up and get better from their illnesses.
Yeah. And so he was buried in a pine box. There was no public viewing, and there was no graveside or memorial service at all.
He was supposed to be maybe like whispering, like maybe he is immortal. Right?
No.
That he will be the eternal king.
So his wife, June Freeman, it said that
dude had a wife.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I know. Somebody had sex with this man.
Yeah, with the rotten leg. With the rotten leg. Yes.
That was her thing. I'm not gonna king shame.
Yeah, no, right? I'm sorry, that just blew my mind. He had a fucking wife.
Yep. And for let's see, I believe it was for a few months, maybe a few weeks. She left his suit at the end of the bed, thinking that he would rise from the grave at some point and have need of it.
Yeah.
She still, for a long time, believed that he was going to come back.
Ma'am.
He still might. He still might.
True, we're still waiting.
He's just waiting for that right time.
If that fucking happened, run for the fucking hills. That ain't him. That's not him.
Well, I mean, in about a year or so, it'll be the 50th anniversary in December of this year.
Oh, okay. Shit.
Just in time for after the election.
There we go. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, we need a zombie Hobart shirt.
Oh my god. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
Oh my god. Coming to you very soon in our merch.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, after his death, everything kind of fell apart. There were a couple of pastors who told the congregation, hey, Hobart Freeman was wrong. We're leaving. And so they formed their own churches. And then there were some that were still faithful to Hobart to varying degrees. And so it really just everyone fractured. There's still Faith Assembly. Faith Assembly still does exist. However, there are also a bunch of other denominations using that same name because it's a pretty generic name.
It is.
Right?
I was going to say there's a Faith Assembly and
it's like a Church of Christ.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So of course.
So if you see the name Faith Assembly on the side of a building, don't think that they're like putting dead babies next to live babies.
Right.
They're probably.
Or are they?
Or are they? Yeah. Maybe they do in the basement. And
The plot twist.
Doing worse. Let's be real.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's so all of these people were fractured, and there was a lot of shunning in the church too. Afterwards, there was a lot of people searching each other out after many years because they had been estranged. So there was some of that.
That's sad.
There was a Facebook group that I'm a part of that is actually about 700 people from all over the place who were a part of the Glory Barn cult in one way or another. When you look at the posts there, some of them are people trying to find each other. Some of them are people posting memes about cults. Some of them are people talking about how they really liked this part of Hobart Freeman's teachings, but not this part. Some of them are just straight up testimonials as to what happened to each individual person, and they're really disparate and really disturbing in their own ways. And it's just there's so much of this out there. Just
out of curiosity, and also just to kind of give our viewers a little bit of an idea of kind of the things that they went through, because that's one of the things that we like to focus on our podcast is the victims. Because this is a real person that did this to a lot of people, and with respecting, these individuals as far as their testimonials, can you give us a vague example of maybe what some of those testimonials were, of course, without sharing?
For sure. I mean, so the big common thread that I noticed even when I was a kid is that anyone that I knew who was a part of the cult or had a family in the cult were probably divorced. Good 80% of the time.
Really?
Now, there were a lot of reports about things like not necessarily Hobart Freeman himself, but his teachers calling people out from the pulpit. That was one of the things they would do. So, for example, it was basically like slut shaming.
Yeah, no kidding.
The pulpit, out loud in front of everyone.
You get an A.
It was like that.
I have an example of one of the more sort of the darker ones of these. There was a family that was from Lima, Ohio. The father had been a doctor. And abandoned his profession when he found the true faith. And so they stayed with that. His father, who had been wealthy, one of the only black doctors in that area of Ohio at the time. He then took the family out to Indiana, and we would find work just doing anything, working at a gas station, maybe sometimes in a factory or something, but he couldn't really hold a job down. He was so obsessed with the religion. But the person who was talking in this, his brother became very, very ill, and his father one time, he heard him basically screaming Bible verses at him, and then he found out that he had died that night. So it's a very tragic thing because his father he knew what was happening.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't believe with his own eyes what he was seeing.
That's so sad.
To have all this training, to have all this knowledge, and to willingly do this to your own son.
Oh my God.
So that broke the religion for this guy, and he was out. I think. He was
that's so sad.
I guess to go back in time again. So when I was at Ball State, I was there to study film, and I had always been fascinated by the Hobart Freeman thing. So there was a guy that I met on Facebook named Josh who had said something about a documentary. And so I reached out to him. And so we talked for a while. We tried to get some testimonials, get some people on board. But I was young, and he was also not a filmmaker, and it was just too difficult, and eventually that was abandoned. But Josh didn't give up. Josh has been a part of, I think, 3 different initiatives.
That's awesome.
To get a documentary made. One of them actually has a trailer with him in it.
Oh, really?
But it was, the Friendly Atheist, I believe, published the trailer, but it never saw the light of day. Probably funding and also lots of logistical things too regarding the cult. For example, people's willingness to come forward, which is really it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and I've been a part of a few others too. And it's I know of one other that there's a woman who is doing a short documentary. Has been trying to, and has a lot of really good witness testimonies. A friend of mine talked with her. However, he wasn't able to share a lot because she's trying to, just keep this.
It's kind of under wraps right now. I totally get that.
It's her project, right? But it's. I am still blown away that this is our dirty little secret here in Goshen, Indiana.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's not really Goshen necessarily.
Kosciuszko County,
basically.
Northern Indiana.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Well,
and I still, I hear people talk about how, I had no idea this existed when they hear about it. And I also hear people say, oh yeah, my aunt, uncle, cousin, whoever was a part of it,
right?
All the time. I would say of the people I know here in Goshen, it's 30%.
Yeah,
of the people I know have some kind of a fringe connection to this. So this really impacted a lot of people. Yeah, and honestly, one of the things I wanted to say here today was, if anyone is seriously interested, if we can get a real crew together, I'm still looking to do that. I'll try
Fuck yeah, let's do it.
As I can.
Yeah.
Right. At the very least, I feel like this story needs to be told in some venue.
Oh, absolutely. It's part of our history as Indiana's history. It's ingrained in the Northwest right now. I shared this on the podcast before. In Milford, we had people that were active members of the Glory Barn. That was who so-and-so's grandparents or whatever was part of it or whatever. And it was such a pariah thing. You'd hear whispers oh, they were part of the Glory Barn. Yeah. And it's and it was such a thing. I thought
Glory Barn was kind of a slur. The proper name was Faith Assembly.
Right, yeah.
They never. I don't know that they ever used the word Glory Barn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was always here's a Glory Barn.
Glory Barn though, I think was
the specific
used by them, very specific to that one
building.
That makes sense.
But it became the name that everyone would call them.
The derogatory name.
There's a Glory Church. Near Syracuse.
Is there a little hole in the wall?
No, it's it's got a long path. That's funny. It's got a long ass path, and my husband and I have drove past it a couple times. Is that the new Glory Barn? Did they just rename it? What's going on?
Yeah. Any other parts we're missing?
Yeah.
I'm sure we're missing the entire thing.
This is such a deep rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's a lot of there's some podcasts, some other podcasts.
Oh yeah, those
on this topic as well. I don't remember the names right now. I can actually link you if you want.
Absolutely, let's do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's interesting to hear about this and just to get more insight on it, because I said, as a local legend, we all knew about it. We all knew somebody that was involved in it, but we didn't know the actual story behind it and the terrible person that was behind it all. You know what I mean? So thank you both so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
We want to do a plug though. Plug whoever you want. Let's start with Andrew.
So, man, I haven't written in a while, but my film criticism website is Cinephiles Without Borders.
It's actually really fucking good.
I currently have been making music under the name Olivia Newton Sinclair.
Also really fucking good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Riverbend Film Festival. Check it out. It's amazing. I'm a programmer there, and yeah, it's a really, really great time.
It's cool. Riverbend Film Festival is so awesome. It's just our own little independent film festival, and it's how many other towns can you say have that?
Especially a town of 30,000.
Exactly.
The middle of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think my biggest dream is that within the next couple of years, someone makes a documentary about the Glory Barn, and we get to screen it.
That would be so fucking cool, dude. Cool. Mm-hmm. And it makes its rounds. Mm-hmm. That would be amazing. Well, let's make it happen.
Listening, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I have some new content coming out with Brides of Neptune. We have a new album coming out, Brides of Neptune, Behold a Great Heathen Army.
Yes. That's awesome.
All right.
Which will be coming out probably in February. There is a song about Hobart Freeman from the point of view of Mel Grider in it. So
okay.
Should be a good.
That was the one that we heard.
Yes.
That was awesome. Tell us, where can we find your music?
If you just go on Spotify, it's there. We only record our worst songs, though.
And
but this one's different. Well, I mean, we record. The problem with recording something is, as soon as you do it, you want to change everything.
Yeah.
It becomes these sort of capsules in time.
And we'll, of course, one of the things that let's just say we are trying to do more as Blood in the Cornfields is we're trying to post events more often, let the community know, or our community of followers know that, hey, these events are going on, South Bend, Goshen, whatever. So hopefully if Brides of Neptune has another show coming up, we'll be able to plug you guys.
I hope that's not if.
No, we will. We will.
We just had practice, and I didn't hear any breakup talk yet. So. We've been together for 8 years too, which is
that is a long time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, longest any of us. We didn't intend. I mean, it wasn't just like it just sort of fell into it. So
I remember actually, I'm going to share a funny story because the first time I ever heard you guys, instant fan. For one, because you played you played the song "Dead Flowers."
Yeah.
Bring me dead flowers every morning.
Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Your cover of it was amazing, and I, metalhead through and through, so I was just like, Luke, what are you taking me to? I don't want to go to this. It's folk music. I don't like that. And he goes, no, you'll really like them. And then, so the first time I saw you all play, I was just like, oh my God, these people are fucking awesome.
Thank you.
And been big fans ever since. So we try anytime that you post, something that you have a show coming up, we try our best to try to make it every time.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Sorry, we are very big fans, very biased. You do awesome work. You do the Lord's work.
Which Lord?
Which one?
Yeah. As above, so below. So thank you all so much again.
Yes, thank you. Yes, no, appreciate it. Definitely.
Look after each other and good night, Cellar Dwellers. Bye.
Bye.